Welcome back. So, back to Bedford today looking for some bargains. And I did, in fact, find a few. But I also ran into one of our viewers there. Her name's Lillian, and she was with her mother. So I thought I would take this opportunity to just throw it out there. If you folks are going to be in the Carlisle area and you want to go out shopping, let me know. Leave me a note in the comments, and we'll see if we can take you along. I can show you where the good stuff is, but I'm out there doing it. So if you want to tag along, let me know. All right, when we come back, we're going to take a look at what I found at Bedford. So the first thing I thought I'd show you is Bedford always does a seasonal display in the front of the store, and it's just opposite the cash register. So I thought you might like to take a look at that. Here we go. Before we get started, I thought you might like to take a look at the new display they have out in front here. Here's the register. And this is the display area. So we're all geared up for spring. This is a bird cage on stand, $125. Here, take a look at those little clips, the little owls. That, by the way, is a pretty good price. If you've ever price shopped these on eBay, ordinarily they are going for anywhere from $160 to up to $400, and they're selling at those prices. Those vintage bird cages on stands, and by the way, some of them are antique because bird cages on stands have gone back more than 100 years. Those sell. And I've looked at prices on eBay, and it's not just that they're asking a lot for them, they're actually getting it, and people are paying the shipping as well. So if you find them, if there are good sources for standing cage bird cages in your area, don't be afraid to pick them up. There is a strong market for them. Well, once I got past the display, I did my usual routine and went over and took a look at Janine's booth first. So here you go. All right, we've got Janine's booth again. And frankly, I had gone through it. I wasn't finding anything. And I thought, well, this is a first. I'm going to have to write a letter of complaint. But this caught my eye. It is obviously a part of a multi-layer Tidbit tray. Well, that's what it's going to be anyway. The hardware, no, it's really not doing anything for me. But the plate is really nice, and it will probably combine very nicely with some stuff I already have at home. So let's take a look. It's $6, 20% off, so not bad. Definitely coming home with me. So the thing that caught my eye about that plate was not that it was part of a Tidbit tray, although I have to say, I do kind of home in on those, but it was a really nice Japan plate. So I took it apart when I got to the cash register. It made it easier for them to pack. So I took the hardware off and let them pack the two pieces separately. That is going to become part of a Tidbit tray, but it's not just going to be one plate with a little handle on it. I prefer multi-level Tidbit trays, and I really like to mix the plates up. That plate was pretty. It had a lot of good colors in it, things that I can pair off with that plate and make something a lot more interesting than just one plate with some old hardware on it. And when it comes to food service, I like to use things that you can completely wash, porcelain plates, for example, and brand new hardware. The idea of metal hardware on a Tidbit tray and reusing that, it just doesn't appeal to me. And it's because it's food. And you just never know how clean you're going to get these metal pieces unless you're prepared to scrub them. Now, if you own the Tidbit tray from new and you're taking responsibility for washing it, then you know it's clean. But if you're buying it used and it's been in somebody else's home holding somebody else's food, possibly living in somebody else's basement, attic, garage, until it ends up in a thrift store, at that point, no. And it's because I'm exceptionally picky about food service items. The idea of serving food on something that, if I don't know from my own personal experience how clean it is, it just gives me the willies. And that's probably just my own peculiarity. But that bit of Tidbit hardware is, well, if I don't end up boiling it, it's probably just going to get set aside and not used. Next up, I circled by the Lutz booth. And it's because it was on my mind, because I'd just done a video about, the antiques at Lutz. So it was in my head. And coincidentally, one of the pieces that I had just done in yesterday's video had been transferred over to their Bedford booth. But there were a couple of other interesting pieces there too. So let's take a look at Lutz Antiques in Bedford Antiques. Remember this piece? That beautiful maple corner cabinet? I filmed this while it was still over at Lutz. But I have an opportunity here because their booth at Bedford is a little less crowded. So we have a chance to actually take a look at this. Still a gorgeous piece. But let's take a look at this, which is the piece that drew me over. This is a serpentine front, and it comes from the shape of these top drawers. Serpentine front, oak dresser with mirror. And look at the grain. This is why people are so crazy about oak. Just gorgeous. Let's take a peek at this. $2.95. Definitely a nice piece. Certainly worth the time it took to come over and take a look at it. We're still at the Lutz booth, and I spotted this piece. My first thought on looking at it was, great, an oak wardrobe. But no, they tricked me. This is a cubby cabinet. I cannot even begin to imagine what this would have been used for initially. But what I'm seeing from all these little boxes is, would this make a fabulous wine storage cabinet? It really would. $4.95. We've got some pretty dental molding here. Overall, I would say the piece is Eastlake. We have the molding dental. It's not exactly Gothic, but we have the incised carvings here. It's oak. Frankly, the panels look like doors or shutters, although I very much doubt this is one of those cannibalized, repurposed pieces. I suspect that any repurposing that was done was in here on the interior, where it's likely it had originally been a wardrobe. Trust Lutz, they have the most interesting pieces.
Well, I thought that dresser was just great. The beautiful oak graining, really nice condition. I love that serpentine top drawer. Well, it's a set of drawers, actually. That was a popular style years ago. It gets its name from the undulating curves of the profile on the front, like a serpent. And that that's a style, serpentine, that goes back to the 18th century. It was a relatively popular way to throw a lot of interest into a case piece, a dresser, a bureau, a sideboard, just anything that would have had drawers. Very interesting piece. Other than that serpentine front, the piece was relatively simple. Not a lot to distract from those two drawers. Very nice piece. The one that really caught my eye, though, was what I thought was a wardrobe, and it was just one cubby after another. I didn't count, but I imagine there had to be at least 40 or 50 separate cubbies in that chest. And when I looked at it, I thought, oh, would that not make a great wine storage cabinet? And not all wine has to be refrigerated to properly store it. It does have to be temperature controlled, which is why wine goes into wine cellars. But prior to electricity and refrigeration, that was how people stored their wine, hence the whole concept of wine cellar. It went down into the basement where the temperature is cool and relatively stable. So, yeah, you could easily store wine in a piece like that in a basement or some other climate controlled room. But I would imagine there must be just dozens of uses. And if I could shake that, wine storage out of my head, I'm sure they would occur to me. But I suspect it was probably originally just a relatively simple wardrobe that someone customized it, possibly for retail use or office use. My suspicion is that it was not originally for home use, simply because so many cubbies, what would you really do with that in a kitchen, a bedroom, etc.? But it would be very convenient to use in a workshop or in a retail setting where you had a lot of little things that you might like to compartmentalize. Very interesting piece. One of the things I really like about Lutz is whenever you see things there, you see the most interesting pieces that, you've never really seen anywhere. And I've been antique shopping for, I shouldn't say this, but 40 years easily. And I see things there that I have never seen before. Really interesting, unusual pieces. And I love the fact that they have a little booth at Bedford, because then all kinds of very interesting things show up. It's like going to Lutz, but not going to Lutz. So I thought you'd get a kick out of those. That's not anything that I was purchasing, just were looking. And next up, I went to a little booth that I go to occasionally. I don't want to say it's a mixed bag. It's not. That's an expression I generally reserve for the booths where there are some good bargains mixed in with overpriced items. In this particular booth, most of the stuff there is priced beyond what the market will reasonably bear. So I see the same things there over and over and over again, because when they're priced too high, they just don't sell. And so, the same stuff I saw there 6 months ago will be there. But every now and then, I do find some really interesting pieces. I found an interesting piece today, and even though it was a little over my price limit, I took it anyway, because pieces like this are hard to find in really good condition and or in really nice designs. So let's take a look.
This little booth is one that I've stopped in quite frequently, and I've actually gotten some interesting things here. I tend not to buy too much here because I find the prices somewhat high. But let's take a look at this. $22, price tag's upside down. Teapot, very pretty, Art Nouveau lady. At $22, the piece is a little out of my price range. This, let's see what we can find about the price. All right. Here we go, $15. And this piece, that is a butter mold. And this is why we don't find traditional butter dishes in older china patterns, because this is what they ended up coming out of the mold looking like. Look at the size of that. We're looking at about, I'm going to say 4 by 7. Definitely too large for what we think of as a butter dish, but since we have in fact recently spoken about butter dishes and the whys and wherefores, I thought it would be nice to take a look at this. And they really went to a lot of bother with their butter. It wasn't just something you grabbed at the supermarket and dumped a stick on a tray. This, however, $15. This is a Japan handled container. They're calling it a cracker container. You really wouldn't fit a lot of crackers in there. Now, at $15, this is over my little $10 limit. On the other hand, these are items that, boy, they sell before I even have a chance to list them. Gorgeous piece, no damage, has the little rattan handle. Very pretty design. This is the sort of thing that I can buy for $15, knowing that it's going to have to price out at least $25 once you start throwing in the fees and the shipping and packing. It's something that will sell for a price that's over $25. There's no question about it. These are very popular, especially when there's no damage. Now the lid is taped on. I'm going to go up to the desk and ask if they can untape the lid, just to make sure there's no hidden damage. But yeah, this is something I will break my $10 rule for.
I don't believe this was a cracker jar. In Asia, particularly in South Asia, not necessarily in Japan, South Asia mostly, um, India, Pakistan, places like that, porcelain containers with lids and handles are used for food, for their lunch pails, really. And when you stop and think about it, the whole concept of lunch pail comes from the fact that it was a pail like piece of metal, porcelain, glass, etc., with a handle, and you would put your lunch in it. So pieces like that were probably, in their original environment, intended to be used as food transport devices, lunch pails. And I think that's what this one was originally. I have been able to put my hot little hands on those from time to time. And when I do, boy, they sell quickly. If I make a video of them before I list them, people will invariably say, "Ooh, I want that," because they're popular items and they're so hard to find in good condition. And my idea of good condition is no nicks, no chips. Crazing is fine. I like crazing. The Asians like crazing. So whenever I'm dealing with Asian porcelain, if it has crazing on it, oh, not only is that not a negative, it's actually a positive. And I've mentioned this before. In China, they went out of their way to develop techniques that would allow the crackling of the glaze as soon as it came out of the kiln. You take it out and the glaze immediately started crackling because they love crazing. It's a thing. So that piece was really nice. I love it when they have the handles too, because very often they don't have the handles. So even though it was small, and even though it was $15, which meant over my general price range, because I like to cut it off at 10, no question about it, that was coming with me. So after our little cracker jar lunch pail, I saw another Japanese piece at a booth just across the aisle. I have no idea what it is. So take a look, let me know, what the heck do you suppose this is?
So I was walking past this little booth, and this piece caught my eye. This is a Japan piece, $35, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. Here it is from the side. It's a footed dish, obviously, but I'm not quite sure what you would put in it, because the area that would hold something in here is very small. I suspect this must have had some sort of special purpose. Anyway, exceptionally pretty piece, even though it's outside of my price range.
Well, if you look at that piece on the side so that you can see the profile of it, the back is quite tall, the front is quite low, it's on little feet. And I looked at it and thought, if I were going to pour water in that, I wouldn't expect that the dish portion, the bowl portion, the receptacle portion, there we go, would hold more than half a cup of water. So clearly it's some sort of dish, but I can't for the life of me imagine what would have sat in it. Most of the dish would have just been the back part, which was raised. Not a clue in the world. So if you folks have an idea, I would love to hear your theories on what the devil that is. Meantime, $35, despite the fact that it was beautiful, it was interesting, it was unusual, no, well out of my price range, and especially because I can find comparable pieces, or I could if I knew what it was, find comparable pieces for a lot less than that. If I were to pick that up, it would be simply as a figurine. I would not be able to say, well, here's again, because I don't know what it is. I would assume that whoever would purchase it from me would be purchasing it to put on a shelf or a table to be looked at instead of to be used, mostly, again, because I got no idea what it's used for. So in that case, I'm looking at better spending of my money. Something of greater value for the dollar would be around the corner. And around the corner, what I did find was one of Paul's little cubbies. This is a beautiful oak china display cabinet with curved glass sides, and certainly take a look at the case because the sides are just nice. And I find all kinds of strange odds and ends. That is one of his first floor cubbies. So I found something interesting there. Let's take a look.
Well, you've seen this little curved glass curio cabinet on the first floor before. This is one of Paul's cubbies. And what I found today is a pair of Japan salt and pepper shakers. And they're a good size. And here's my hand for comparison. $5, and they are bluegills. No idea what a bluegill is. I assume if it were edible, I'd have heard of it. But good condition, $5, definitely taking these home.
Yes, salt and pepper shakers. I have not a clue in the world what a bluegill is. Usually, my view of a fish is when I see it in a grocery store or on a menu. And I don't recall ever having seen bluegills. I don't know if they're edible. I just don't know what they are. But they were very attractive little salt and pepper shakers. Japan, not just nice pieces, but really interesting and unusual. And in little items like this, it's the interesting and the unusual that tend to go over big with my buyers. The ordinary, no, not so much. But I do want to make a point about that. People like different, but not too different. When you get into too different, you're narrowing your market. You're looking for a very tiny wedge of the buying public that will buy salt and pepper shakers that are like, bats dressed up in tuxedos or something. I might buy that. But if it's very, very unusual, you've probably got a limited market. If it's very, very ordinary, you probably have a broader market, but people are less likely to go out of their way to buy something that they can get just about anywhere. So if you're selling a very ordinary piece, basically you're either selling your good pricing, your good customer service, or you're just getting lucky. If it's a very, very unusual piece, yeah, the people who want it will probably pay whatever it is you're asking, but there are going to be very few of those buyers. So what you're looking for is just unusual enough. And that can be a very fine line. I've picked up some things that I thought were, oh, look at this. This is delightfully unusual. And I found that, yeah, well, maybe I thought it was interesting, but nobody else seems to. Other times when I've grabbed something and it has been just unusual enough. So people will come back and say, I saw this, I remembered it, because it stands out in their minds. And so in that sense, it's almost like a sixth sense that you have to develop over time when you're buying for resale to hit that just unusual enough point. Okay, so that's it for today. I am going to do a little more from this shopping trip tomorrow. So have a terrific day. We're going to show a little slideshow on the way out. And with any luck at all, I'm going to be prepping some new slides for a new slideshow because Liz Brown from Brownhaven Photography sent me a whole bunch of new pictures. So, and she has great wildlife pictures. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we're going to get some new slideshows. The slideshows, by the way, are just a little moment of zen as we prepare to leave YouTube and go out into the real world. Doesn't hurt to do it with a smile. All right, I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great